Good morning, guys. Welcome to Hedgehog's Homestead. My name is Laura. Today we are going to make from this starter sourdough book. You can get this on Amazon. That's where I got it, and I absolutely love it because this book gives detailed recipe information step by step. And so it's easy for me to convey it to you as well. So this bread we're going to be making today is an Irish sourdough bread. So I've never made it before, so it's exciting for me to bring this to you as I'm learning how to make it. With all sourdoughs, we start with the starter. So it's pretty early in the morning here, so I'm starting my starter. And this is a starter that is months and months and months old, and I've been feeding it with my starter, because I only make bread once a week. I keep it in the fridge, and then like 2 days before, 2 days before I'm going to make some bread, I feed it a couple times. So I'm just going to mix it up here. And the recipe calls for 9.5 ounces of starter. I'm just going to do it in cups today because I think it's easier to translate to you guys. Nice thing about this book too is it does give you those cups. Okay, and so I only have a half cup measurement, most of them in there from the last time. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour my starter. It's a little thin, a little bit worried about that, but I'm going to pour my starter. Oh, it's still nice and bubbly. So this is a half cup. I have one more to pour in there. And because this starter is just for this bread, I'm going to go ahead, that didn't leave me a lot of starter in there, so I'm going to go ahead and measure that starter out after I'm done this and feed that starter as well. Okay. Now this starter, so next we want to put in half a cup of water, but you want filtered water, so filtered from your fridge or bottled water, and then you're going to warm it up just so it's like the warmth of a baby bottle. Okay, and then this recipe also calls for a cup of flour. So we'll get that out. And it calls for a cup of whole wheat flour. This starter right here is not whole wheat. It's the only thing about doing it in a mason jar is it's a little harder to get in there. Now the thing I like about doing it in a mason jar is because it's got the measurements on the jar, and so it's easier for me to tell if it's how much it's risen, because we want to catch our starter on the upside Okay, that is perfect temperature. So, and then it called for half a cup. of filtered water, warmed 90 degrees. Okay, and then we mix that around really, really good. And you want to put this in a warm, dark place. Now the nice thing about using whole wheat in your starter for a bread recipe, and whole wheat and rye and stuff like that, is it's easier to start a recipe with that because it feeds faster. Oh, it's nice and thick now, which is good. That's good. Okay. So there you go. So that's the beginning of this recipe. Started in the morning, and then we'll do the rest of it in the afternoon and tonight. Because you got that lovely rising and all that stuff. So, sourdough starter that I start with is bread flour. I just use whatever's on hand. So this is now a mixture of white and wheat. So we're going to put this top on there. I'm going to keep it in my microwave because the heat of the oven or stove or whatever, it's just better to put it in a darker place. I don't put my lid on tight. I just drop it on there, and now we wait for this to rise. We were going to catch it on the rise because that's when it's at its strength. You don't want to catch it when it's all the way up and it's starting to come down. You don't want to make your bread then. You want to catch it on the rise up. Okay, we'll see you guys back later. Sorry you guys, I had, as I was looking at my video, it missed the whole part where I was showing you what the measurements were and what I was putting in my bowl. And what you're missing at this point is how I put, I'll tell you what's in the recipe first, and then I'll tell you what I put in the bowl ahead of time. So this recipe calls for 2/3 cup room temperature water, 75 degrees, about that, and then it adds for 2 cups of sourdough starter. So what you're going to miss is me combining those in the blender, as well as combining in that I put in my potato, mashed potato mix. Okay. This recipe also calls for 3 cups unbleached flour or bread flour. It's important to use unbleached flour in bread recipes. Okay. It calls for 2 1/2 cups whole wheat flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and the recipe calls for ice cubes. I think that comes in later. I'll get back to you on that part. Okay guys, now I'm going to have you look inside my bowl. There you go. And we're going to go ahead and start adding our flour. Now this recipe calls for 3 cups unbleached flour and then 2 1/2 cups whole wheat flour. What I did is I am holding a whole cup aside because we put our dough hook on there. I put a whole cup aside because you want to keep some of the flour out because you don't want this to be too thick. Okay, so I'm going to add a cup at a time, just mixing it slowly. Okay, and now that we have quite a bit of our flour in there and it's starting to combine, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. Use whatever salt you want. I have a bowl with a lid on. I'm going to take this bread out with my bread scraper. I love these things. I don't know how anybody could do without. I have my oil here. I'm going to coat my bowl. And put that aside. I'm going to take a little bit of this flour and put it down just for a second because I want my dough into a ball before I put it in my bowl. Okay. I only blended it for 4 minutes in my blender. You just kind of want to knead it a couple times. You don't want to knead it too much. It's not good to over knead bread. Then it gets too stiff. You can see, looking at this dough, you can see why I stopped when I stopped. There's no way that this dough could have taken any more flour. Okay, and so what we're doing is we're building tension on the top as we do this, and that's how you get a good rise out of your bread. We're going to put this downward, mix that oil on the top, and then we're going to pick it back up and put it down, seam side down. And then I'm going to put my bread proofing. Now when it's doubled or almost doubled, this is sourdough, so it's not going to be as quick as a normal dough, especially if your sourdough starter is on the younger side. So I'm going to put it in my oven for 2 hours. I'm going to start giving it a look here and there in my oven or in your warm place, in a warm, dark place in your house, in about an hour, because sometimes sourdough starter is stronger than other times, so it's just good to watch that. So here we go, guys. We'll see you back in 2 hours or sooner, hopefully sooner. All right, you guys, we'll see you in a bit. Okay, guys, I took my sourdough and put it on a piece of parchment paper, a squarish piece of parchment paper, and now I'm going to cup my hands under, and I'm just going to turn it like so. And the reason why you do this is it creates tension on the top of your dough. And the parchment paper makes it easy for me to turn it on the table here. Okay, so we've done that, and now we are just going to cover this dough with a little flour, just a tiny bit of flour. Oh, come on. And we are going to cover our tea towel here in a generous amount of flour. I forget what those little baskets are called. Just like that. And then we're going to place our tea towel over our flour like so. And now we're going to let it rise for 1 more hour. We're going to have a pizza stone on the top rack of our oven, and on the bottom rack we're going to have like a big cookie sheet with like maybe a nice lip on it. And before we put our bread in, we're going to score our bread, and then we're going to turn our oven down to 400 degrees. We're going to put our oven in, our bread in the oven on top of the pizza stone. And we're going to put a cup of ice cubes in that pan that's underneath our pizza stone and quickly shut the oven. Bake for 40 minutes or until our bread has reached the temperature of 205 degrees. See you back in an hour when this is ready to go in. I'm excited. This is cool and easy. So we'll see you in an hour. In 15 minutes, we are going to be taking out that water that we put on the bottom of our oven. And I'll show you how I do that, because if you're not careful, you can break the window in your oven. Okay, this is how you do it, guys. Got to take out the water now. So I'm going to put this towel over my window. Oh, all the water's out of there, so it's not a big deal. Just a little bit left. And then I'm going to scoot that back in there. So that's how you protect your window when you're taking out your water, guys. We'll be right back. This bread so far is very impressive looking, so I can't wait to show you guys. Okay, there you guys go. Our bread is done. It's exactly 205 degrees and it is huge. Just took it out of the oven. Looks like it got a little dark on the bottom. And there you go. One big loaf of sourdough bread. So we'll let this sit for a couple hours, guys. Then we'll taste it and give you guys the lowdown on how it tastes. Just nice and crispy. Love it. Has a different smell to it than I expected. And we'll see you guys back in 2 hours when we taste this thing. Okay. There we go. That's what it looks like inside. I've never had this bread before, just like you guys. Put a little butter on it. You can really smell the whole wheat in it. Okay, let's taste it. It's nice and soft. That's good. That's real good. I think it throws you off because you can smell the whole wheat a lot. And then when you taste it, it doesn't really taste of whole wheat at first, and then it just kind of, and so it's a nice bread. All right, guys, that's good. That's a winner. Next week, I am gonna make for you guys just a hiccups. Sorry. Next week I'm gonna make for you guys just a regular sandwich sourdough loaf. So if you want that in your repertoire. Anyways, if you want to be able to make sourdough for sandwich bread, which is great for French toast, and I love a grilled cheese with sourdough. So check that out. We'll see you guys next week and try this bread out. I'll have the recipe in the description below, and along with some simple sourdough loaf and some other breads I've done. Check those out too. They're on my page. And please, if you can, like and subscribe. And as always, God bless.